Welcome to Craftastrophe. Today we are going to make a chalkboard clay pot. So here are the things that we need for the craft. We use some newspaper to keep from getting the table dirty. And then we will use this clay pot with the little saucer. We're going to use this little tray here, and I'm going to use this paint, which is black and aquamarine. So we'll be using those, and then we'll use this little sponge brush to paint on. And then towards the end, we're going to use this chalkboard paint. And we're also going to use a little sandpaper thing and some chalk later on. Okay, so now we have everything all set out, and we are going to start with painting. So we're going to start with the black paint. So to start out, we have to clean this off. So I already cleaned this off and I'll let it dry and get all the dust particles off of it so that it'll paint smoothly on here. So now what we do is we use the black paint, and we're gonna paint the whole whole saucer with the black paint here. So we put the black paint in a little tray here, whole bunch in there. We'll put more in there later if we need to. And then start painting right here. And just paint until it's all done. And we're gonna paint the inside, or the outside, and the inside, and the bottom part here. Just like that, and do all the way around and on the inside. So we keep painting this. So we get the inside all painted. And just make sure that the lines are smooth. Make sure you get the top rim up here. Make sure there's no leftover color of your pot here. So it seems to dry fairly quickly, but your hands do get a little dirty from doing this here. So now we're going to grab this end and finish off this area over here. And don't forget to do the bottom part of the rim right here. That rim part is important also, because you don't want the orange color sticking out. So we just keep painting until we have it all done, and then we will just wait for it to dry to do the next step. So as this one dries, I'm gonna work on the saucer here. Paint the saucer just like we did the top. Just paint. Just like that, make it all smooth and even. And as before, just make sure that there's no other color underneath the black. Just take a look at it, like that. And then I'm gonna flip it over, the downside part of it. I'm gonna paint the top of this. You get the edge right there. That's what the newspaper helps for, so that way you don't have a mess all over your table. Okay, we just make sure everything's all smooth and looks good. And now we just let it dry. And once it's dry, we go to the next step. And here's step number 1, all done. So now that this has dried, the black coating here, now we can put the next color on, and that will go on the rims here. And then that will also go onto the rims of the saucer. So here we're going to use the turquoise color. I'm gonna gently roll that around on here. And then after this is painted over, we have to let it dry again, and then we have to put a second coating on it. And then the directions also say to do colors wherever else you want it. So in this case, I'm gonna do some of the inside as the turquoise color also. So I'm gonna go halfway down, and then it'll be half black and half turquoise in there. You can do it however you want. You can be creative and do stripes or polka dots or whatever, but most people probably won't see the inside of it anyway. And the reason for 2 coats is because the first coat looks kind of grainy, so the second coat is going to cover the part that needs more smoothed outness. Okay, so that's just about done for the top part here. So now we just let it sit and dry. Gonna smooth out some of the chunk parts in here. Okay, so we just let that part dry, and now we're on to this part here. Just be really careful because it's a really small edge here. Okay, so we're gonna let this part dry, And once it's dried off, we will go on to the next step. This is dried out, so now we just do a second coat. So after we do a second coat here, we follow the instructions for the next step. So I'm doing my second coat on the inside, and then I'll be doing the second coat on the outside as soon as I'm done with the inside one here. Okay, can't forget the rim top. Okay, so now I'm going to do the outside part of this. Do its second coat. You can already tell that the coloring is getting better because on the first coat you can see all the black lines, and on the second coat there's less black lines. There's a few here and there, but you can just touch it up later probably and put a little bit more on there if it needs it. And I would suggest following the green, and then that way make sure that you get it all into the little grooves. Okay, so it's looking pretty good here. A little bit more on. Okay, touching it up and almost done with this part. Okay, so we're done with part one. So now part two is a saucer. We're gonna do the exact same thing and go through the process again and do its pretty second coat. Get paint on the inside. You can probably touch it up with the black one later. Be really gentle on that top ridge right there. So if you do it too hard, you're gonna get little clumpy pieces in there. So later on I'll go and do some touch-ups with the black. So now I'm gonna flip it over and I'm gonna do this part here. Found it easier just to flip it over from the other part. Although I would suggest you do this part first and then do the ridge part last because now it's wet. We almost have this done. We have our second coat here. So now we wait for this to dry and then we can go on to the next process. And I do suggest though while everything's drying that you clean up all the other stuff, so then that way if you have to use these sponge brushes again, then they'll be ready for when everything else is ready to be done. Okay, so we have that done there. Now we're gonna flip it over, put it down like that, and then I'm gonna do a little bit of touch up because the paint got a little smeared from flopping it over. Perfect, so now we're gonna let this dry and move on to the next step. Okay, so this has been dried, so now we're going to put the chalkboard paint on here. We will use the paint from in here, and then we'll go like this and go like this all the way around. And we want to make sure that we get it nicely coated, so then for the second round, we can just put the next set of paint on there. Once this is all done, we have to do the second round, and then we will be able to go to the next step. There's 2 more steps left. We will be using this in a little bit, and we're going to be scrubbing it around here to make some little designs. And then after that, according to this paint here, we have to let it sit for 24 hours after the 2 coats have dried. And then there's a few extra things that you have to do. So you have to follow the instructions on the paint here. So when that is all done, that will be the end product. So we have 24 hours before we can do our next part. So we'll just let it sit here and dry before I do my second coat. Okay, so we let this dry for an hour. So now we have to put on the second coat and then wait 24 hours to finish it off and do the rest of what it says on here. So as soon as this is dry, we can do the other one, and then we have to wait to draw on it. So let's get started here. Let's do the last round of paint. This is coming out really, really smooth, and can't really tell that it's like a chalkboard, but it's turning out really, really cool. This will be fun to see at the very end here. So we just keep going around the whole entire thing here until it's all wet. You can tell where it's wet, where it's shimmering. There's a little bit of a glow to it. Okay, make sure I got it all the way around the whole entire side here. Okay, that's looking pretty good. So now we just gotta let it dry, and once it's dry, we can move on to sanding down the rims here. So we'll be doing some sanding on this part, and then we'll be doing some sanding on this part. So as soon as this is completely done and dry, we will be able to do that part. So now that this has dried, we're going to use this little sandpaper thing here, and we will rub the pot in the saucer. We're gonna rub it really lightly with the sandpaper. So let's see what happens. Okay, so it looks like it's gonna give us some little scratch marky looking things on there. So it's gonna give it like a rustic look to it. So we're just gonna keep rubbing until we get what we want out of it. So we just rub real lightly along here. Just keep doing it all the way around until we get how we want it to look. And the good thing is, if you mess up and you don't like how it is, you can always just paint over it, or change it up however you like. So I'm just gonna do it lightly all the way around just to give it a little rustic feel. And then it does say to clean off the dust after you're done with it. So we'll clean off the dust in a minute, and we'll do this side here. Just do it however you want, doesn't really matter. Get the outcome that you want it to look like. So looks like we got this part done. Okay, so we have that done. So here we have our little pot. So we're gonna clean off the dust with the paper towel. Just undust it because now it has little greenish colored specks on the bottom here. Okay, so our craft is basically finished. So now all that we have to do is wait for 24 hours for the chalk paint to dry, and then we have to follow the instructions that are on the paint chalk container. So this project does take about 2 days to do. Basically, it's all done, and then now we just need to decide what we want to put in the pot. So I'll probably be putting pens and pencils in there since we have those all over the house. So I'll write pens and pencils on here. So that will be the final product when it's all done. Okay, so we let the paint here settle for 24 hours. And so now we're able to use the chalk and write whatever we want on here. So in this case, I'm going to write pencils and pens because I'll be sticking pencils and pens in here. So you just lightly write on here pencils and pens. And then if you change your mind and you don't want to put pencils and pens or whatever you're sticking in there, then you just use a little washcloth and wipe it off and then dry it off with a towel, and then you can rewrite whatever you want on there. So it's pretty awesome. So check out the final product here. So what we have here is pencil and pen, clay board, clay pot. And we got the little rustic feel to it here, and then on the inside I have the turquoise color, and then I also still have some black in there just to make it look kind of alternated. And then we have the saucer here, which got rustic look on there, and then the black in the inside. And if you ever see any extra spots in there, you can just touch it up later if you need to. So we have our chalkboard clay pot, and I did get the instructions off of this little free brochure thing from a craft store, and it has all the directions on the back side here. So it does help to have instructions, especially when you don't know how to do what you're doing. But now you know how to do this, so please enjoy and check out my other videos, and come back next time for the next one. Hello, and thank you for watching Craftastrophe. What did you think of this video? Give me some comments below and let me know. And please check out my last video and my other channels that I'm in also. And don't forget to hit the little subscribe button. Then you can check out all the other videos and have updates of the next one that comes out every Saturday at 1 p.m. So please check out these videos, and see you next time. Thanks a lot.